I literally could not be more happy to announce that finally have the guitar I've been dreaming of since I was 12 or 13 years old. And so before I get into why this guitar is special, I want to tell you about why it's a little special to me specifically. So my parents, the heaviest thing they listened to was Depeche Mode and Journey. So I did not get my hard rock influence from them. So I first discovered this is going to be the most millennial thing you've ever heard. Are we millennials? The first time I ever heard Black Sabbath was when I played Guitar Hero back in 6th or 7th grade. I heard War Pigs. I really enjoyed playing through it. And then at the time I kind of tinkered with the idea of like, I wonder what it'd be like to play this on a real guitar. And so I begged and begged and begged my parents to get me a real guitar. And so the first thing I ever got was this right here. And I hated it because the reason I got into guitar was for Black Sabbath. And Iommi was exclusively an SG player as far as I knew. And then it didn't take me very long to get into AC/DC. Again, big SG player. So I grew up watching videos of Sabbath on YouTube, and in some of them he plays a pretty similar black SG with a chrome pickguard to this one, and I just knew I had to have an SG. And if you were to tell 12-year-old, 13-year-old me one time in my life I get to own one of these, I would have said you're full of shit. And so of course after War Pigs I went on iTunes at the time and I got probably a couple of those $15 iTunes gift cards from Santa or whoever, and went into iTunes and downloaded all the Black Sabbath songs I could, and I just completely fell in love with the band, and that's what really, really got me into guitar playing. So now, why this guitar in particular is special. When most people think of Tony Iommi, they think of his red SG with the P90s and the wraparound tailpiece and with the monkey sticker. I mean, that's the guitar that wrote the first 3 or 4 albums. The iconic Iommi SG. Even at the time, it was considered a pretty entry-level model, so to speak. And it really only became special because of Iommi. But growing up watching those videos, I think in the late 70s, he appeared with a black SG, and I just thought it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And yeah, I know it was probably a JD or a John Birch custom. What people mostly don't know is that Gibson themselves actually made an Iommi signature model, like the one you see here. If you go on Reverb or Sweetwater or wherever, you can probably find an Epiphone Iommi signature SG for like $800 or $900. Or that's how much they were going for last time I checked, because I was in the hunt for one at some point. They were almost impossible to find, and the ones that were for sale I noticed were a little over my budget, way over $800 or $900, which for an Epiphone was a little tough to bite, so I ended up never getting one. And then what most people know, the custom shop actually made a Gibson SG for him with sterling silver cross inlays, and those things are absolute unicorns. I think there's only 250 of them ever made, and you can't find them for sale anywhere. And if you do find them for sale, they're going for 10 grand-ish or above. I was at work one day talking to some of the guys, and I said, yeah, I think I'm gonna get an SG. I've always wanted an SG ever since I was a kid, and I just never got around to buying one. I bought a couple of Les Paul, until I bought an ESP LTD. I've never bought a Gibson SG before. And so one of the guys at work said, oh yeah, I got an SG. It's probably the one you want too. And he said, I got the Iommi signature SG. I'm like, what, the Epiphone one? And he said, no, the Gibson one. And actually, I didn't even know Gibson USA made Iommi Signature SG, so that was a huge surprise to me already. At some point in the early 2000s, Gibson USA did a run of these for him, and I heard about the custom shop one, I heard about the Epiphone one, which I was trying to buy. Couldn't get my hands on either, and so a coworker sold this one to me actually for extremely cheap, because this headstock, or peg head, was completely snapped off from here in the early 2000s and hasn't been played in over 20 years now. And so this actually took quite a little bit of work to get back in working condition, and I'm so happy I went through with it. I don't know how well you can see, but this is a pretty flawless repair. You can't even tell that this was snapped off. It needed to be glued up, which was an insane challenge on its own. It needed to have a new head veneer placed. The old paint needed to be stripped and new paint applied and then sanded, buffed. I used as much of the original hardware as I could. This is almost all original except for the biggest one was swapping this nut out for a real bone nut. We had the head veneer off, we had basically all this off anyways, so I figured if I'm going to replace the nut, now would be a great time to do it, so I opted for the real bone nut. So it originally came with this black pickguard, which I have here, and it had some, you can see fragments of the original head veneer that were on here, just completely shattered. And the unfortunate part, if you'll notice, this guitar does not have a truss rod cover at the moment because the original snapped off here at the first screw, so this couldn't be applied onto it. I'm gonna have to figure something out for that a little later. I even have a little piece of the original crown inlay that came with it as well. So that took a significant amount of work. But once that was put back, I swapped out the pickguard with this mirror one, which, you know, I grew up seeing in the YouTube videos of the late 70s, early 80s performances. That's how it became what you see today. And then the cross inlays, of course. They aren't sterling silver, like the $10,000 plus custom shop ones, which you can't even find. They're still here. It's a 24 fret, which I'm a huge fan of. And I gotta say, this thing sounds absolutely amazing. I can imagine me, along with most of the people who would buy this kind of guitar, would probably just keep it in the bridge pickup position, which does sound huge, chunky, a little on the dark side, but it's a pretty sharp high end. It does sound incredible, but what I didn't expect is how versatile it was. So the neck pickup on its own is a little dark for my taste. I wasn't necessarily planning to use this guitar very much for its clean capabilities. It is quite a hot pickup, and actually it doesn't sound bad at all when I'm trying to run it clean. It is a little more versatile than I was expecting. And then actually when you switch to the middle position and use both pickups at the same time, I think it sounds really, really good for blues, or for actually probably a lot of things that you would like to be playing. But yeah, this bridge pickup, hot, chunky, a little on the dark side, but it's exactly what you would want to play some Sabbath, and I've enjoyed every second of it so far. So yeah, there you have it. The Gibson USA, slightly yet tastefully modified signature SG, and surprisingly versatile. You know, I think it sounds pretty great clean, pretty great overdriven, absolutely killer. And I know my sound setup probably doesn't do it the best justice, but in person at least, I think it sounds absolutely huge coming out of this tiny, tiny, tiny orange amp you see back here, which is just a micro Terror with a 1x8 cab. And if it sounds huge coming out of that, I can't wait to get it plugged into a bigger rig. And I couldn't be happier with it.